Hey, welcome back to Enigmatica 2, where in the last video, we finished off environmental tech by upgrading the void miner to tier 5, and making a tier 5 resource miner, to get basically any resource we might ever need. I've been fiddling with it a little bit on my own. I've got a bunch more speed modifiers, so now the resource miner only takes 4 ticks to mine something, and I think I can barely support 2 speed modifiers in the ore miner, but I am starting to strain my power just a little bit. Also, I got plenty of comments telling me about bandwidth modifiers, but those don't exist in 1.12. I'm not sure when they're added, but I don't have them here. Unless that's what luck is. I don't know what the luck modifier does, but the JEI says I can only do speed and accuracy, and I know accuracy doesn't do what the bandwidth modifier does, so I'm just gonna say that it doesn't exist in this pack. Anyway, on to something that does exist in this pack. Draconic evolution. I'm pretty sure I've done everything I need to be able to actually get started on this, and looking through some of the stuff, both on the JEI and in the quest book, it doesn't seem to be too terribly difficult. There only really seems to be a couple things holding me back. Some of the super high-end stuff requires combination crafting, and also getting charged draconium in the first place. And combination crafting is maybe a little bit far off. I would rather not worry about this just yet. But the other thing is I need a lot of draconic cores. Beyond that, it doesn't seem too bad. Stellar alloy doesn't seem too hard. It does need melodic alloy, but I'm gonna have to automate that as part of their draconic cores anyway, so I don't see this being nearly as bad. And beyond that, it's fusion crafting, which is its own can of worms, but nowhere near as complicated as some of this stuff. Or, complicated is the wrong word, annoying. Anyway, I don't have to worry about that just yet. The main thing that I want to try to get done in this video is to not necessarily automate draconic cores, but if I can queue up a recipe for it like anything else, and have it reliably crafted all, that's good enough for me. And I've been looking through most of the stuff that I'm gonna need, and it doesn't seem terrible. It's mainly just the melodic alloy, if I'm being honest, which requires plutonium and LEU-235 fuel. The rest of it is not a big deal. And both of these need a fission reactor. It doesn't need to be a good fission reactor, it just needs a fission reactor, which I don't know how difficult this is going to be. I've barely touched nuclearcraft, but out of everything needed for the draconic core, the fission reactor does seem to be the hardest part left. And any kind of automation along the way. But I'll solve that as I go. So, does the quest page tell me anything I need to know about the fission reactor? Not really. I'm going to need a nuclear furnace to be able to make the fission controller, and it doesn't tell me much about the multi-block, but I can probably figure something out. So, I'll just focus on getting that first. So there's general nuclearcraft stuff that needs doing. You know, I may as well automate some of these platings now, because I'm going to need a lot of them. That does mean I'm finally going to have to connect the metal press in as a machine. It's probably going to be stuck on plates for now. And I really can't think of a better solution than this to try and connect this in. But I can queue up the plating now, and it should work. In comparison, the advanced plating is much easier. Even the tough alloy I can automate fairly well. So now I can queue up those if I need to as well. And how many do I need? To make the nuclear furnaces, I think, yeah, I've already got what I need for that. Then I just need 4 advanced platings, and magnesium diboride solenoids? Boron and magnesium? Okay, there we go. So, there's the fission controller. How do I make this multi-block? I've done this before, but I barely remember it. I think it's a 5x5 multi-block? Hang on, yeah. All of the coolers have various rules for them. I can probably just use cryotheme coolers. They're probably the easiest. And also it looks like one of the best. Then I also need these reactor cells, and reactor casings, and a reactor port, probably. Not sure how many. I seem to remember I only needed one. I guess we'll find out. So I'm gonna need quite a lot of fission reactor casings. So I'm very glad I made a recipe for basic plating. I'm not sure how many of these I'm gonna need. I'll just go with like 100. Yeah, 100 should be fine. And then some of them get turned into the reactor port. And now I need to figure out how many coolers and cells I need. I'm not running this for the sake of power, so I don't have to maximize cells. I just need a legal configuration for the cryothium. And they all need at least 2 reactor cells. I can just make a couple of these to demonstrate. So, the coolers need to be touching at least 2 reactor cells. They could be touching more if I wanted it to burn hotter, but that's kind of dangerous. At that point, I could fill in these corners, and there's more coolers than there are cells. But if I go with this sort of a pattern, up to the 3x3, all the cryothium should be touching 2 cells. And I do have more coolers than I do have cells, so it's probably going to work fairly well. So that should work for the inside of the reactor. I'll fiddle with it once it's actually running. I just need something that works for now. And I think I needed to run enriched uranium in there. But I think even though I'm making this now, I'm going to keep it inside the ME system until I've actually got the reactor up and running. So, where do I build this? It doesn't feel right to be putting it in here, and it feels too modern to fit in this industry building. But then this building is pretty full. I guess that is why I've got the roof, and there's a pretty good spot right there. Yeah. Huh. 100 was a pretty good guess for how many casings I'd need. So, is this correct? No. I don't think I placed either of these blocks illegally. I don't think I missed any blocks on the inside. Wait a minute. Is it telling me to do this? Yes, it was. Why? And why it wouldn't just ignore that? Okay. Sure. So, it seems like... I think that's the cooling. Negative 2100. I don't know how much heat the uranium fuel produces. I guess I can see. And this is where I really hope the hazmat suit works. Nope, it does not. Oh, I managed to outlive it. Nice. But clearly this hazmat suit isn't enough to protect me from the radiation. Do I need the nuclear-craft hazmat suit? This seems really expensive. I have a better idea. This is an extremely wasteful idea, but I'm only wasting cobblestone, and it does give me quite a lot of XP. There we go. That is one massive cobblestone platform for 3 points. And people say Avitas is the easiest one to level up. Okay, this is all I've done. It's enough for me to start getting some increased regen. And I would go further if I hadn't run out of cobblestone. So what I've got is just going to have to do. Hopefully I can withstand this. Just got to stick it in. And... is it working? I don't know. Apparently it's generating power, but there's also nothing stored. It's not generating heat, but I do have net heat generation. I don't know what's wrong with this. It's just not doing anything. Wait, I've just had a random brainwave. Yep. Nowhere online did it say it needed redstone, but I just randomly remembered that. Okay. I need to fix the heat. Oh, wait, no, that's power, not heat. What happens if it hits full power? Nothing. Okay. Presumably, once it hits maximum heat, bad things happen. So I shouldn't let it get to that point. So I would like to run through the rest of that fuel before I take this apart to try and fix it. Because that seems like a really bad idea if there's residual fuel. There we go. So I need... I'll just do 700 more cooling. Is there any way that I could throw in more cryothium coolers? How would this work? Depends on the definition of adjacent. Because fuel cells, or reactor cells, oh, it's more efficient. Does that mean produce more heat or just burn faster? But they're more efficient for each adjacent cell. So doing it this way, there's nothing, none of them are adjacent. At least I'm assuming diagonal doesn't count as adjacent. And all of the cryothium cells work. So there's no more cryothium. There's exactly as much as before, but maybe less heat is produced. Okay, no, there's one less cooler cell than before. So it's less heat reduction. But does this work? It is producing much less heat. It means that it produces a hell of a lot less power, but I didn't care about power. It seems to be burning fuel in more or less the same speed, and all I want is for this to burn through fuel as quick as possible. I might upgrade this to a 5x5. I'm going to need a lot more stuff for that. So I'm just going to dismantle this real quick. Okay, I think that works for the internals of the 5x5. I shouldn't have missed a spot. Now I just build up the exterior. Okay, that seems to be working. I have 63 fuel cells and 100% heat multiplier. So it should just be maximum fuel burning, minimum heat. Let's see what happens. I'm still at a massive net negative of heat here. So I could probably replace some of the cryothium with even more cells. But let me just see. It is burning quite a lot faster, but I would still like it to be faster than this. But I don't think I have the time to be upgrading much more than this. I can just expand the pattern out, maybe to like a 7x7 or even to a 9x9. Just make a giant reactor that does nothing but burn all of my fuel. Well, I've now got a bunch of depleted uranium fuel. Just need to put it through a fuel reprocessor to get the plutonium. And I wonder, is it easier to just take this plutonium and use that for the crafts? Or if I should turn it into MOX fuel and then do this? Because I do still need 3 plutonium to get 1 MOX. So that would cost 27 tiny piles. And this gets me 28. So I have exactly as much benefit. It's exactly as efficient to just do this with enriched uranium. It isn't quite as self-sufficient because I do need to get these tiny clumps, but I need a lot of uranium-238 anyway, so I think I'm going to leave that as is. So now I just connect this with an interface, and I could just make another reactor port to simplify things, but I'm going to do a bit of a weird method here. I'm going to insert the green fuel, extract the white fuel into here, and hopefully that works. And I also need to connect the isotope separator, and I'm just gonna have it running this constantly pretty much. So I should have all the pieces to be able to automate the plutonium. Never mind, I still need the fuel reprocessor. Do I have what I need for this? Nearly. I just need some usual NuclearCraft stuff, and there's that. I'll just connect that in too, and now I should be good to do this. So to get 1 tiny pile of plutonium, I need to put through 1 depleted uranium nuclear fuel, but the recipe's a bit jank from the GEI, so I've got to do it manually. Oh, plutonium is radioactive, of course. Oh, plutonium has irradiated me for quite a lot longer than the other stuff. Something tells me I'm not surviving this one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I've come back to my giant cobblestone atrocity. I have placed a lot more cobblestone now, and leveled up 3 whole times. So now I can get this cleansing perk. So hopefully, on top of my regen just generally being better, now radiation might remove itself if I heal enough, so I can handle these radioactive materials again. All this instead of getting hazmat gear. So let me see. I've got the recipe for the tiny piles of plutonium. I now need to make the the recipes to create the fuel. And then I may as well make the recipes for everything else. But the palace crystal could be difficult. I might be able to just do this manually for the time being, because I honestly can't think of a simple way to automate the empowerer. I could just add a ton of filters, but that feels really clunky. But I guess if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Yeah, sure. Okay, this was more or less the idea I had in mind. Interface goes into the chest sends into the hoppers, each one has a different filter on it, gets empowered, comes out in the bottom hopper, gets taken straight back into the interface. I'm going to have to change each one of these filters every time I add a new item in, but I can't think of a better solution than this. Now I need to go through the process of getting all of the palace crystal stuff. And I'm also not sure how to automate the atomic reconstructor. I guess I can do this one manually, because I don't even have a theoretical idea. Same with the blue slime. So, can I make this melodic alloy block? No, because for some reason it doesn't understand how to get a block of cobalt. Or the tiny clump of uranium. Is it the wrong uranium? No. I don't think it's actually connected into the system properly. I think it's run out of channels? Yep. I'll just put in some more dense cables. And now it sees the machine. But the problem now is, for some reason, it uses a random chiseled version of cobalt. So then I think I'm just missing the palace crystal, which I may as well go a bit overboard for. And then it's gonna let me try crafting it. I really hope this works. The empowerer worked. The fission reactor's slow, but it's going. And it can extract. So I think this just works. Yeah. Melodic alloy. Okay. Just to make sure that it understands what to do on a mass scale, I haven't given it nearly enough slime or palace crystals, or sapphires for that matter, or cobalt. I guess that's not being processed. But everything else it understands how to do. Okay. Cool. And I think that was probably the hardest part of the draconic core. So I'm going to see if I can expand up from there. Ooh, the dislocator is interesting because draconium dust I have to get by crushing draconium ingots. Do I have a pulverizer connected? Sag mill works. Then the rest of this stuff, try the elite plating. I've got boron, crystal binder. Ooh, I'm gonna have to make recipes for some of this stuff. And I can't explicitly get a recipe for rhodochrosite because it's a chance, but if I just throw enough granite at it, it should work. But my question is the calcium sulfate. I thought there'd be a little bit of a hiccup here. Calcium sulfate solution. So we need a chemical reactor. Fluorite water, sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid's a pain. Fluorite water isn't too bad. I mean, nothing here is that bad, it's just a long chain. I'm wondering if it's easier to do this whole chain via nuclear craft instead of trying to throw the mechanism machines in. Chemical reactors, a little expensive. But actually, didn't I use some down here? Is that what the alloy tanks were replacing? No, they were replacing salt mixers. So I'm still going to have to make a bunch of these. It's probably easier to just stay within the one mod. Okay, I'll come back to this. I'm going to do the rest of the draconic core. I need this genetics processor, which... Ooh, I do have a system to do printed circuits, but I don't have a means of intercepting them. Interesting. All I would really need to do is just make a few more patterns in here and have all of these export instead of just the one. Or I could just get a separate inscriber because the logic circuits are used for advanced rocketry, but I doubt I'm going to be touching that anymore. And the engineering is used for quite a few other things. So yeah, I'm just going to set up a separate inscriber. And I can probably put it in exactly the same spot. Then stuff with pure nether quartz is pretty easy. But But then the advanced control circuits aren't that big of a deal, but it means I've got to automate the infuser, finally. Something I should have done quite a long time ago that I just kind of didn't. And I held off for a while because the infuser isn't quite so easy to automate. I can't just throw an interface on top of it and call it a day, because I need to figure out how to connect the infuse type. And so doing it all in the one infusing factory makes this a bit more of a logistical challenge. But I think I might have figured out possibly the best way to do this. I mean, I've been using this method for a very long time and it works. And I guess if I'm doing this the automated way, I may as well be efficient with things and only put in the compressed versions. But the main thing to consider here is the portions. That's why usually I don't bother with compressed redstone or compressed coal if I can get away with it, because it just makes it a lot easier to set up the automation, and doing it all one-to-one is much more precise. But I've got to do it for the diamond and the obsidian anyway. But for now, I'm just going to do the recipes that I need for the draconic core, and I'll make the rest of these edge cases on my own, because there's a lot of stuff that goes in here. So I'm just going to try making 2 advanced control circuits, and the recipe's wrong. I don't like that it defaults to IC2 circuits. They are a lot more annoying. So I should be able to make the genetics processor. Let me see. Yeah, it recognizes everything. I'll just leave it be, because I've still got to do this elite plating. And I'll do everything else before I get back to the crystal binder, because the rest of this shouldn't be that bad. And is that all the plating? Yes. I'm just missing that calcium sulfate and magnesium ore. So I should probably do something about the laser drill. I've had it off for a long time because it's almost completely filled with storage. I should probably connect this to some drawers and then also into the ME system. But for the time being, I'll just take a bit of magnesium and go. But anyway, the calcium sulfate, I'm not going to put all of this through the ME. I'm going to make a bit of a production line here. What do I explicitly need to give it? Probably 1 sulfur, and then for the fluorite water, 1 crushed fluorite, which I can also just get in the rock crusher. So then how many steps do I need along the way here? Okay, I need 4 chemical reactors, and I need 1 melter for that sulfur, but I've got 1 down here that I can steal. So now I just need to go through and make these machines, and it shouldn't be too bad to set it up. Okay, that should be all the machines. I'm then going to need an infinite water source to make the sulfuric acid, but also I need normal oxygen, so I can just get another electrolytic separator. They're not too expensive. And that should be all I need for this. I can set this up here. I might do this in a bit of a tricky way just to save space. Okay, I think this works. I need crushed fluorite going into this fluid enricher, and I need sulfur going into this melter. Then the sulfur should go into this first chemical reactor, along with some oxygen from here to become sulfur dioxide, then into the next chemical reactor to become sulfur trioxide, then into this reactor with water to become sulfuric acid, then into this chemical reactor alongside the fluoride mixture, whatever that's called, to become the calcium fluoride, and then that goes into the crystallizer to make the calcium sulfate, and that then comes back into the interface. Okay, then I also get a bunch of this hydrofluoric acid along the way. I don't know if there's anything worthwhile I can do with it, so I'm just gonna bin it. Can I bin on negative priority? No. What if I use an ender fluid conduit? Yes. Okay, so it should try to put everything into the crystallizer first, and if it can't put it into the crystallizer, it'll bin it. So that should work to get rid of the hydrofluoric acid. Now to just see if this works. I put 1 crushed fluorite in there, and the fluorite water makes it into the chemical reactor. Then 1 sulfur in the melter, and Ah, right, that needs power too. I'm not sure where it's putting the oxygen, or if it's extracting it at all. Wait, I need to turn it into liquid oxygen to work. Fine, I have a rotary condensator. Ah, that's taken the hydrogen. I need to take from the other side then. This is rapidly deteriorating. Right, this also needs power. But it's making liquid oxygen, and it's putting it in the chemical reactors. Okay, I think everything's gone through? Although I think I might have missed it. There's 500 calcium sulfate solution. Don't tell me some of it got binned. I'm just going to use a fluid filter, just to be absolutely sure that that's what happened. I'm going to put this all through again, get all the stuff. Okay, am I going to be... Yep, some of it just got binned. Okay, but it has been made. I do have calcium sulfate. And all I need to do is give it sulfur and fluoride. And so, if I'm not mistaken, that's the last thing that I need to make a draconic core. It's telling me I have it all. Let's see if it's gonna let me. Everything except for the calcium sulfate, it's made, no problem. In fact, I probably had most of that already. Oh, right. There we go. So, I think I'm mostly just gonna be waiting for this to go through, but eventually it should all go through, and then it's worked. It's made me a draconic core. And just to be sure, does it scale up? I'm missing some things. Draconium, I can convert the essence. Steel, just put it through the infuser. Blaze powder, again, just get the blazes up and running again. Magnesium, connect to the laser drill. Lithium and boron, the same. And the melodic alloy, I need a recipe that converts the lock. And then sapphire, again, I'm just going to have to connect the laser drill. Cobalt, just make a manual recipe for that. But otherwise, all the difficult stuff, it looks like it just works. So, I think that is everything for the draconic core. There is likely some bugs for me to iron out, and some of those other things like connecting the laser drill I can do on my own. But for all intents and purposes, I can start mass producing draconic cores. Meaning we can now properly get started on draconic evolution. I wasn't expecting to get all of that done in one video, but I might have barely scraped under time. So, that is a pretty perfect point to end off. I can't think of any better indicator of progress than the draconic core. I've had to do quite a lot to get here. I've had to make a whole fission reactor, had to make this whole production line, I've built this monstrosity, and I'm finally starting to do more auto-processing. Something that I've kind of ignored for a while. Right, now to figure out where to go from here. But that's something for me to do on my own. So then, I don't think I have anything else to say, so I'm going to call the video here. Bye.